Well, joining me now on CEO Hub is Ian McCleave, who's the CEO of EV Engineering. Thanks for joining us, Ian.
Thank you, Alan.
Now, you're an unusual kind of CEO because you don't run a big organisation, you're a startup, but your job in a way, it seems to me, is to persuade through evidence General Motors or other motor companies to build electric vehicles in Australia. So tell us a bit about the genesis of that. I mean, in a sense, you're working for the parts manufacturers and Better Place, which is the company that's setting up to supply electric cars with electricity. But tell us a bit about how it came about and how you set up EV Engineering in the beginning.
Well, Alan, we started about 12 months ago. We're celebrating our first birthday. So we started with a small team, 4 people sitting around a table. We had a few rough concept sketches at that stage, and we had a pile of resumes from people who wanted to join us. So it was very
And how did you get those resumes? Did you advertise for people?
We didn't. A lot of it came out of our launch that we held a few weeks before that. People already approached us. We had a website there, so people approached us, and a lot of it was word of mouth. People had heard about we were starting up. So it wasn't hard. We didn't have to advertise very heavily at all. People were just very keen to join the project.
And the project was to build a electric Commodore.
Right. Our plan was to build, first of all, 2 cars, which we finished in the middle of last year. And we've had those cars out on test and development work since then. And so far they've achieved all their performance objectives, and they've done that without any compromises in safety or space or comfort. So we're very chuffed about that. It's been very rewarding, and the team deserves a lot of credit. And now we'll start, in the next couple of months, we'll build the 7 cars which go out. There are 7 evaluation cars that will go out to real world customers who are part of our member teams. It won't be general public, but there'll be people who are not engineers who can then experience what it's like to drive an electric car and how they enjoy that experience.
So, but you had to you put together a smallish team. How many people to begin with?
We have, well, initially it was about 15 people. I think we're running about 17 at the moment.
And how did you go about putting those people together? You obviously wanted people who are expert, but were you looking for a passion for the topic as well?
Absolutely. We picked people who had a passion about renewable energy projects and exciting engineering projects. And then we wanted a balance of talent in the team, people who were conceptual strategic thinkers and people who were just doers, if you like, people who could really get down and deliver the goods. And we achieved that balance very well, and we've got an excellent balance of talent in the team.
And what about you personally? What qualifies you to do this job?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I was an engineer for 25 years with Holden, mostly working in powertrain. So I come from a leaded fuel background, if you like, originally. But I worked on a lot of renewable projects towards the end of my time at Holden. Then after I retired in 2007, I worked on a few more biofuel projects and so on. And then I was attracted to this project with Better Place, which really seemed to me the way of the future.
And how would you describe yourself as a manager?
I think I'm a very intuitive manager. I'm not a theoretical manager. I tend to work very much on the basis that if you pick the right people, get the right team together, you'll get the results. The other part of it is, and this project demonstrates, is that if you've got very clear objectives, a very clear focus, in our case a pretty simple, straightforward focus. It wasn't a very complicated one. It was to build 7 cars that delivered the goods. And if you can do that and energise the team, the results just flow.
And to what extent do you have to get involved with persuading or marketing, in a sense, that project, that concept, to the motor companies?
Well, I think that's very much part of my role at the moment is to start talking about this, because our funding runs out actually in the middle of the year. So this project, from a technical perspective, stops at that point and we go into evaluation phase. But clearly we want to use the talents we've got to move on and do further projects. So part of the effort has been to work with our member companies including Bosch and Conti and Futurus and Air International, all big Australian suppliers, and of course also with Better Place. But in the case of the auto suppliers, they brought talents to us, they brought their existing skills and capabilities, and the opportunity with this project was for them to learn the new skills and capabilities about electric vehicles, so they can then apply those to other projects with their other customers, both in Australia and offshore. So it's that mix of that. So really we want to build on all that, and in ourselves as our team also find other opportunities to work with customers both in Australia and offshore.
So what chance do you think there is that that Holden will convert one of its production lines to electric cars in Australia?
Well, that's for them to decide, I guess. But certainly we.
But are there any signs from them yet that they're nibbling?
Well, I think it's a bit early to say at this point, but certainly they've been following our project very closely and they're very impressed with the results of it. I think that's fair to say. But I guess that's their own internal discussions that will decide whether they want to proceed with that.
It's a matter for, to some extent, internal politics, isn't it? I mean, where are they going to build their electric cars? Is it going to be here or in Detroit or perhaps somewhere else? Is that right?
It is, yes. But what we've tried to do is make it as easy as possible for them. We've designed the car in a very modular way so that in fact our electrical components are almost interchangeable with the components that go into a normal petrol engine car. So in theory at least it would be possible to install those modules on a production line, whether it be here or anywhere overseas, interchangeably with the petrol engine components.
And what if they don't do it here? They do something else. Could your company actually become a commercial converter of Holden's for the market here?
I don't think commercial conversion is really a practical opportunity. I think the costs are just against you. We all know that electric vehicles struggle with costs anyway at the moment at this stage on the cost curve. I think it'll look different in 5 or 10 years' time, but right now I just don't think that's a practical proposition.
There's a guy in Adelaide who's got the business of converting Hyundai Getzes. I can't remember the name of it, but...
I think you think of Ross Blade in Castlemaine. Yeah. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yes, and he does it, and he's done it very successfully so far. Relatively small numbers, but I think we're now seeing the stage where electric cars are starting to come into the market in high volume, and while their costs are still relatively high, they are coming down quite quickly. So you've got cars like Nissan Leaf and IMEF and so on already on the market, and then of course Holden will have the Holden Volt on sale later on this year.
But I guess the cost of conversion would make the price of the car prohibitive.
Yes, you can't afford to have a hand-built car. It's just too expensive really at this stage. So our plan is, either this project goes somewhere or we offer our skills and capabilities elsewhere.
Well, like where? What's Plan B?
Well, there's Plan B, C and D at the moment, but...
okay, well, let's start with B.
I can't be too specific at this point, but certainly we're working with a number of other companies who are very interested in using our talents, both here and in China is where the big opportunity is. China's got huge incentives from government to move towards electric cars and renewables. So there's companies in China who we're already talking with.
Where you could sell your technology or do it for them, or what? How
both of those things. Mostly doing it for them. In other words, taking on a part of their project to develop cars, or in fact using our technology that we've already developed.
Right. So we could actually see a situation where you could be helping to build cars that are imported by Australia from China.
Well, that's possible, and if you think that it's not dissimilar to the model that our supplier companies like Bosch and Futurus and Air International already have, that they do a lot of their work for offshore car companies, and I guess conceivably those cars come back into Australia.
Do you remain convinced that the market will shift to electric vehicles at some point? I mean, I suppose you have to believe that, otherwise you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Sure. No, I believe it's inevitable. The question is when. I guess yesterday we had the Cars of Tomorrow conference, and a lot of the discussion was focused around that question of the timing. I think that there's a lot of factors at play here, not the least of which is the economics of it. Certainly we need to move beyond the early adopter phase that we're in at the moment to the point where it becomes a sound economic proposition for fleet managers and others. So I think there'll be a little wait and see while people suss out the issues like residual values and all those other things. But certainly at the moment the economics are not discouraging. I know Evan Thornley from Better Place, for example, often quotes that if a customer is already using $80 of petrol a week, then it already makes sense for them to look at a total package of a car and a battery and the energy costs over a 3-year period. So we're not a million miles away from the technology already being very affordable. So if you put all those sort of things into play, I think we're going to see a reasonably good uptake, and certainly in the next 5 years or so I think we'll start seeing a significant uptake.
You mentioned that you retired from Holden. This is obviously a retirement job for you. Is this it? You're going to see this through for as far as it goes?
Well, certainly I'm very excited about it at the moment. It's keeping me very interested and involved, so I'm very happy to keep it going for a while yet.
Great to talk to you, Ian. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Alan.